Welcome to 5 Minute Bible Study. All right, so confession. I'm going to read these verses, and I'm sure it's great and it's important, but I just never gave them much time in my entire life until this time. And I think part of it was that I also didn't understand it, and maybe I still don't, but it's about fasting. And I have never fasted in my life except when I had my colonoscopy. So that's my experience with fasting. But I feel like I got maybe some clarity from what these verses mean, but I'll just share what I got. Feel free to correct me. Um, Matthew 9:14 to 17. Then John's disciples came and asked him, "How is it that we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" Jesus answered, "How can the guests of the bridegroom mourn while he is still with them? The time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them, and then they will fast. No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch will pull away from the garment, making the tear worse. Neither do men pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins will burst. The wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins, and both are preserved." That whole wineskin part is the part that I've never really understood. So I just had to work through it slowly. I might read my notes a little more than normal today, just because it is something that's still kind of new to me. But anyways, so John's disciples came up to him and said, "Why aren't you fasting?" John fasts, we fast, the Pharisees fast, like any kind of spiritual person fasts, but you don't. And there's potential that you're the most spiritual person on earth right now, so why don't you fast? And so then he says, "How can the guests of the bridegroom mourn when he is with them?" And when I kind of Googled mourning, it said that it was for the purpose of mourning, of fasting. Fasting is the purpose of mourning, of being sad, of lamenting. And he says, why waste time doing that? You do that when God is not with you. So people did that in the Old Testament because God wasn't with them in person, physical, everywhere they were. But I'm here right now. I'm with you. So don't waste time mourning and lamenting. Now is party time and celebration time because I am here and in your presence. There will be a time to mourn and to lament that I'm not with you in person. That's coming. But this is not that time. And then he starts talking about the new wineskin and the old wineskin, an unshrunk cloth and an old garment. Here's what I got. The Old Testament is the old garment, the old wineskin, obviously, because it's old. It had traditions and rules to follow and commands. And that was your Savior. That was your only way of being saved, was obey the commandments in the Old Testament. And Jesus says, "But now I'm a new wineskin. I am an unshrunk piece of cloth. I am fresh." And he said, this is where I might read, he says, "Fasting and mourning is for when your God isn't here, but I'm here." You can't blend two things together. You can't blend Old Testament commandments, that Savior, with me, with love and grace and mercy and forgiveness and a new Savior. Because the reason why he came was this is next to impossible. It is impossible. We can't do things the Old Testament way. And it requires so much physical work and labor and sacrificing and blah, blah, blah. It is so hard to live. And so Jesus comes and says, "I'm not throwing this in the garbage. This is still very valuable. It still stands true. All I'm doing is I'm coming and saying, you don't have to live with this pressure. I'm here to save you. I'm here to make you whole in God's eyes. You don't, I know you can't do this, so I'm going to do it for you, and you're good to go. So it doesn't make this invalid. This just takes care of how hard the old way is. The old wine had an old way of being saved. The new wine has a new Savior and a new way of living. It still saves you from the idea that we can't live up to God's standards. But this is so much more, so much easier and freeing. So don't worry about mourning and sticking to Old Testament laws and feel like they are required and feel like you have to do them to save them. That was here. But none of those things can save you because you'll never be able to do them all. So I'm here to take care of it. I'm here to do what you will never be able to do, and the pressure is off. Does that make sense? Subscribe.